everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Green Jeans podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Maya Van Rossum, and I'm joined by our co-host,
Anneke Van Rossum.
I go by she, her. You go by
she, her.
And with that, we're going to let you introduce the actual podcast because you do a much better job than I do, as anybody who listened to season 1 knows.
All right. So let's do the general thing and then I'll tell you guys what season 2 is about, which is really fun, I think. So if you haven't joined us before and you can't tell by our last names, we are a mother-daughter duo that are both on environmental activist paths. And we talk about social and environmental justice issues from a generational perspective, because my mom is a lifelong activist for many, many years longer than me. And I am a budding activist. I hate saying that. I just don't know how else to say it. And somehow, some way, my mom has been fighting the same issues that my generation is now fighting because people just don't listen. And so we're here to bring the message to you guys and inspire you to do your own environmental social justice pathway. So that's what these are about. If you joined us for season 1, we did a lot of episodes with different topics, but we had a lot of guests on to come talk about everything from the type of honey you use to different environmental justice efforts, to their own personal stories with pollution, to really cool events, to carbon capture. We covered the spectrum on that. This season, we're going to try and keep the episodes a little bit shorter, and we're going to focus on hot topics in the environment or the world. I don't know, kind of whatever comes across the news feed. So if you listen to this in season 2 and you're like, wow, I have something I want them to talk about, you should go to @GreenJeansPod on Instagram, send us a DM, or follow @GreenAmendments, send us a DM, and let us know what you want to talk about. Otherwise, we're just going to see what we find on the news, since there's always some environmental hot topic happening.
Which is
not always
unfortunately fun. Like kind of scary, because it's usually not good news, it's bad news. But this episode seems like we're going to talk a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. So why don't you start us off, Anneke?
Yeah.
What's in the news?
All right, guys. So this topic for this week is really cool. I have a personal passion for animals and I love animals. And so I was really excited when I saw this come across my phone news feed. So there has been a jaguar sighting at the Arizona-Mexico border, which is really cool. And so I was really excited to hear about that, because if you guys didn't know, actually jaguars used to live in the US and did come across the land bridge that connected Russia and Alaska. Jaguars did come across that. There is evidence they were out in the New Mexico, Arizona territory. There was one shot in the Grand Canyon in the 60s. And obviously there aren't really any there now, because you want to guess why, Mom?
Combination of hunting, habitat destruction, and just general either targeting of the species and the animals or not caring.
Yeah, so that's basically why usually we don't get to see cool animals or things, because people effed it up. Yeah, so that's really exciting. I don't want to ramble. We're going to talk about it, but I'm just trying to, is there anything you wanted to talk about?
I think the one thing that you forgot to mention was that this sighting happened in an area that was slated for Donald Trump's border wall.
Yes.
But the border wall, was halted when President Biden came into office, and it's being reevaluated and analyzed. So this is actually a section where the border wall should have been constructed, potentially could be constructed, but because it wasn't, that is why we have the sighting of this young animal. And the fact that it is a younger animal suggests that there might be a stretch of the habitat, because apparently, according to the articles, the females don't stray too far from their mother's habitat,
Yeah.
From their mother's original habitat. So the fact that you see a younger animal suggests that maybe there's been a stretching of the habitat towards the US border. And the fact that there was no border wall to impede the roamings in this area is pretty powerful and pretty important. And I think is pretty darn strong evidence that for all the other myriad of reasons why we shouldn't be investing in Donald Trump's border wall, this is just another ecological reason why it's time to not just stop totally construction on the border wall, but actually tear down the wall, right? Tear down that wall,
Tear down the wall.
President Biden, because we have critters that have lost their habitat because the border wall has inflicted habitat harm and environmental harm, but is actually a physical obstruction that's creating problems for the animals.
Yeah, so that was a really great point actually that I forgot to mention. So if people don't know the term, it's called a wildlife corridor, and that is like generally where the usual path that animals migrate to. So like even geese flying on that, whatever that route is called, that's a wildlife corridor. And so the Trump stupid wall blocked off a lot of that wildlife corridor, so the animals weren't actually able to go back and forth, even though they're like haven't been that many, but it was still more of a thing. So yeah, it's a young male that somebody caught on their like trail cam on their ranch, which is really exciting. I feel like there's probably a lot of people that are like, jaguars coming to Arizona and New Mexico, bad. People are gonna get killed. People are gonna get eaten. All this, like that. Yeah, that would suck if that happened. But there's about 2 million acres in Arizona and New Mexico around that the scientists are saying is like perfect jaguar habitat and is like pretty much not occupied. I think there are a few tribes that live out there, but like they also are stewards of the lands already and like care for the wildlife out there through different programs. So that's really exciting, and I think it's cool, and but it does make me, and I think it's great because one of the big arguments always against natural predators coming back is usually made by like ranchers and farmers that are like, they're going to eat all my cattle. So this is perfect because this area could sustain between like 90 to 150 jaguars is the number right now. And it's 2 million acres. That's a lot of land.
Well, and the other thing, of course, and I know you think this, and I know you mean this, and I just want to give voice to this, is, as you said, whether you're talking about interactions with ranchers and their livestock or other people, the truth is there are other ways to prevent and manage that, and decimation of a species isn't the right way to do that. And as you said, there used to be jaguars in Arizona and New Mexico, and now they're not. And that's called, well, except potentially maybe now they're coming back, which would be really, really cool. And just for, two other terms, you talked about wildlife corridors. I think two other really important terms when we're talking about species and loss of species is a lot of people hear about extinction, right? That's when the species is gone from everywhere. But there is also the term extirpation. Extirpation is when a species is gone from a historic region where it used to be, but it's not gone from the face of the earth, right? And so the jaguars used to be in New Mexico and Arizona, as you said, and then they disappeared, but they still existed in New Mexico. And so now there is opportunity to bring this species back to these regions of the United States where they used to be, where they should be, and frankly, they're entitled to be. And it is, we are obliged as people and neighbors, right? We are not the owners of the earth, and we, have an obligation to live happily and healthfully with our plant and animal friends, right? Other pieces of nature, right? We were all put here, however it is you believe we got here. We all got here the same way. And so we don't have a right to extinguish the animals because it serves our purposes. So anyway, this is just a really great opportunity to show honor and respect for the jaguar and let them come back to where they belong.
And that's the thing. So 2 things. One, his name is El Bonito, which means the beautiful. So I'm a big fan. I love that. I'm really excited he has a name. So El Bonito, big shout out to you, my dude. Have a great time. But it's also like, we're not talking about a species like, I think when we think about extinct species, which like they're not, jaguars aren't extinct. They're on even in the US, they're on, it's called like the IUCN Red List. So they're endangered. or like severely threatened. I can't remember which spectrum that is. But this isn't like, oh, they were here 200 years ago. I know I talked about the land bridge. We're talking about like the last sighting in the US is sighting when someone shot it is the 1960s. It's not that long ago. So it's not like we're doing some weird, like people trying to bring back mammoths that like should not live in this climate. Like we're talking about something that was just recently here, and the only reason it's not is because people are annoying and killed it. But I really like your point, Mom, about like that we coexist, and it brings me back to, I remember there's you actually introduced me to the book My Ishmael, and for those who haven't read it, it's a great book. It definitely requires a lot of critical thinking, but it's awesome. The premise of the book is that there is a gorilla who has learned how to like telepathically communicate, and he puts out like a newspaper ad for a student to come. So for whatever reason, this man is like, yeah, let me go to this abandoned warehouse. He follows the ad, goes to the warehouse, and there's this big gorilla behind this plate of glass. And the gorilla starts telecommunicating with him. He's like, what? It's pretty cool. But there's a portion in the book where the gorilla talks about how humans have this manifest destiny in their head that like we are above the law of nature. And that's why we do all these things where we like, build our homes and we kill animals, because kind of like how hunters have that weird concept of like animals were put here for me to kill them. Well, a lot of hunters have that weird concept. I won't put they're good hunters. They're like people that are like sustainable and all that, but like big game hunters have that weird thing. I hate that. And just like how humans think that we don't have to abide by the laws of nature. And that always kind of struck me ever since I read that. And when I interact with frackers and these people that are like, wow, we shouldn't, like, that animal is in my way. It's like, why do you think you're better than the jaguar? Like, what? I don't know. So that made me think about it.
Well, I think that's really great that you brought up the book Ishmael. And for those who are interested, it's written by Daniel Quinn. And really fabulous book. And yes, you do have to come to it with a level of openness and mindfulness, but the truth is it pulls you in. I mean, It is one of those books. I started reading it and I just couldn't put it down because there really is a story to it as well, right? It's a story with a message. It's fascinating. And it is one of those books that when I finished reading it, I literally bought 20 copies and gave it to everybody I knew, because I just thought it was so amazing in the reading of it and the message. And it was also a really great, interesting, cool story. So Ishmael by Daniel Quinn is really worth a read. And the truth is, it's sort of the reaction that I hope that people have when they read my book, The Green Amendment, right? That they get through it and say, wow, I really want to share this book. I really want to share this message. So I don't know if it has that impact, but I think that it's really, well, I just, it's one of those, that's the kind of effect that you want to have in this world, getting people to think and change behavior. And I think Ishmael is the kind of book that can do that. And I think what's happening in Arizona and New Mexico with the jaguar, there is an opportunity to reconsider, to rethink, to change behavior, and to welcome back the jaguar as, a fellow inhabitant of this earth with the same entitlement to live and to be free as the rest of us, with the same entitlement to a clean, safe, and healthy environment and a safe space and place to live. And so I really hope that that is the overall reaction to the jaguar. But I am worried that as you began, we're going to have a lot of the same kind of reactions we have to the wolf, to the bear, to mountain lions, to geese, for criminy sakes, Canada geese, which is, we don't want them here. We don't want them in our space. And therefore we, the people, believe that we have a right to kill them, take their habitat, and push them out. And that would be a real shame.
I just don't, it weirds me out because, I agree. And it weirds me out with the reaction people have to like animals that it's this reaction of like, they're in my space. It's like, no, they were here first, actually. And I just, and I never understand too, like we had with the gray wolves, with the bald eagles, with so many species, as soon as they kind of start to get back to where like they should be in population level, and we're like, oh great, come back, awesome, then it's like, let's lift all the restrictions, let's let everybody go out and shoot them, and it's going to be some like return back to where, so then they gotta go back on the endangered species list. And for people who don't know, like one of the things people are excited about with the jaguar coming back is that it might mean this reestablishment of the ecosystem that once was, or this like more native channel, because the jaguar was like a big predator species that's not there anymore. And for those that don't know, if you ever took like, well, maybe not every high school bio class talked about it, but the gray wolf, there's this whole cool story about when the wolves were decimated in Yellowstone Park, or when the wolves, so basically Yellowstone Park, there was like all these elk, all these huge animals, the creeks were blocked up, there's all this problem. And then when the wolves made a comeback, it really was like all of a sudden the grass was growing better. All of a sudden the creeks and the rivers were flowing the way they were supposed to be, because you had this top predator come back in and eat the elk that were decimating the grassland. And like, then there was more habitat for the, I don't know how the water part functioned, but it's part of it.
Well, the way it works for the waterways is when you allow the natural habitat to restore, which, as you said, once the large animals that were eating up the grasses and the flora and the fauna, that should have been there, you then have, when you have high waters, the flows of the streams change. I mean, the relationship between a waterway and the landscape around it is critical for healthy water quality, healthy habitat, and healthy flows. Let me just put it that way. And so when you allow the landscape to heal, you naturally then are allowing the waterways to heal. And that's what's so important. I think the one thing too, well, not one thing, there's so many things, but the other thing that I think is very striking when we think about this idea of the jaguar and letting them come back to their historic ecosystems here in the United States, it also means it's, that is beneficial for the population as a whole, right? Whether they're in Mexico or in the US, wherever they are, when we expand the habitat, we allow them to come back writ large, then we are creating a healthier, happier population overall, regardless of borders, right? It can't be about the borders. And so that's really a beautiful, beautiful impact as well of allowing the return of the jaguar to the US. Because one of the things, there are a lot of species here in the US and around the world for which that is no longer an opportunity. Within the past year, there's been discussion about declaring 23 species here in the US to be extinct. And remember what I said, the difference between extirpation and extinction. Extirpation is, it's not in this area anymore where it used to be, but it exists somewhere else. So like the jaguar, you can have an opportunity for a return. But extinction means it's gone. It's gone. It's gone from the entire planet. And so they're talking about declaring 23 species here in the US extinct. There are over 900 species globally, 902, that have been determined to be extinct. So they can never come back. And I have not researched all of them, but I pretty much can guess that if you look all of them up, they have gone extinct probably because of, or at least in part because of, people and human behaviors and the hunting and the destruction of the habitat. So that the idea that we would be responsible for the loss of a species forever from this earth is so disturbing and so shocking. And then when you counter that with this story of the jaguar and the possibility that we could be a part of restoring the species, bringing it back to health, that is just such an amazing, positive opportunity. And how people could not get behind it sort of breaks my brain.
I don't get it either. I remember I had a pretty big, honestly, I was sad for like a week when, I'm still sad about it, but I was pretty heart ripped out of my chest when, if people don't know, the northern white rhino is like no longer, I think there's still 2 females alive, but the last male died in 2018. His name was Sudan. And it was a pretty big thing. And I remember I got this shirt that I couldn't wear on it. I got it because it like went to a white rhino fund. But I couldn't wear it because it was really sad. And the shirt has like a picture of, so it's like Sudan, like Africa honors you, or the animal kingdom honors you. And it's this big rhino, and like all the animals, kind of like in Lion King, like they're all kind of bending down. And honestly, the shirt gave me this really emotional reaction because I just was like, this beautiful creature that did nothing wrong, just is living in the world. And the fact that people have, I don't understand it, how like we as a species have done so much damage to erase other species. Like, I don't think people understand, or I don't think it really comprehends, just because it feels so commonplace now, like what you have to do to eradicate an entire species of animal. Like that there is not a single mating pair left because of people. And it like breaks my brain. And that's
Well,
like no, I was just gonna say, like, reading that this habitat could provide between 90 to 150 jaguars, like still a tiny number, and wish it could be more, but like that's just monumental.
the thing is too about that, the 23 species here in the US that I mentioned, actually in the 1960s, right, they were identified as being imperiled. And each of these 23 animals, and amongst them was the Ivory-Billed Woodpecker, which apparently is this, right? Well, apparently it's iconic to old growth forests, but anybody who's seen a woodpecker knows how beautiful they are. The Ivory-Billed Woodpecker is iconic. You know, I've heard about it. You see, I mean, it's just phenomenal. But anyway, when these 23 animals, whatever type they are, were placed on the endangered species list in 1960. So what would that be? 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
They were already identified as at risk, but it was believed that we could turn things around for them, that we could change our behavior, that they could make a comeback, and that people intentionally, mindfully, knowingly did not change their behavior and cause these 23 species to go extinct is morally reprehensible. And, you know, we have so many others right now that are in this same perilous place right here on the Delaware River, in the Delaware River, right? My beautiful Delaware River. There is a genetically unique population of Atlantic sturgeon. It is on the endangered species list. There are less than 300 spawning adults left. And yet we are not seeing changed behavior by our government officials and critical players in the community that would allow and support the restoration of this population. The Delaware River Basin Commission won't even change their water quality standards to ensure that this species has the appropriate level of oxygen to survive, thrive, and procreate. We have an oxygen standard that's over 50 years old.
Oh my God.
That is nearly preserves the level of oxygen in the river at nearly just a little bit over half what the science says the sturgeon need. And so like you were talking about your rhino t-shirt, we have at the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, we have a t-shirt with a picture of the Atlantic sturgeon, and it says, "I survived the dinosaur," because they were around at the time of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You know, I survived the dinosaurs, or I outlived the dinosaurs. Will I outlive the people?
Yeah.
And there's a real chance that the answer is going to be no.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. Like, to me, I mean, there's something about mistreating animals. Obviously, like, you know, for you too, there's something about mistreating the environment. But I think some people, but like animals is like, to me, it's another living thing that has its own communication, that like you can hear noises from it. You can, obviously nature needs the same level of protection, but I think there's something so diabolical about a person who like who can hurt an animal, or like literally just not providing standards for oxygen, like to breathe. It's like, okay, what if that was for people? You think people don't need oxygen, so fish don't need oxygen? And obviously, I think that's why the Green Amendment movement is so great, because it's like, people deserve a right to clean air, and you're literally not providing that right now. And we are choking ourselves out at this point. And I feel like that all just kind of put in full circle. Again, people who are new to this podcast, this is what we're talking about. And this is what we do, is that these are issues my mom was fighting and like is still fighting today. And like our generation is kind of like, hi, hello, problem. And it's like, this is not a new thing. This has been alarm bells for like 1940s, 50s, 60s. And I don't know, like this whole, like that the 60s was like this great environmental movement. It really just at this point feels like a freaking Band-Aid. And it was on, like, if I took an axe and hit you in the back with it and I put a tiny Band-Aid on it, like that's how it feels. Cause now it's just festering and getting worse and worse and worse. And we're just like, more Band-Aids on it.
No, and it is getting worse because in very significant part, the reaction at that time was to pass laws that legalize pollution and environmental degradation. You review it and you legalize it through permitting. And that's the fundamental problem that a Green Amendment is trying to correct, is by making it, transforming environmental rights from a fundamental belief system, into an enforceable constitutional right in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution. And for people for whom, right, we all have our different priorities, and environmentalists are the same. Some people are really connected to rivers and water. Some people really thinking about air. A lot of people are really thinking about species and animals. And I want people to know that a constitutional Green Amendment is a key element to help in the battle to save species, because a Green Amendment not only says that people have a right to clean water and clean air, a stable climate, but it also talks about having a right to healthy ecosystems, to the natural values of a healthy environment. Many of the Green Amendment proposals talk explicitly about the values of healthy flora and fauna, right? Plants and animals. So Green Amendments are part of the solution for dealing with the extinction crisis when it comes to wildlife and plant life too. So I want people to know that. And if you care about critters, then hopefully you'll join our Green Amendment movement as well. And if you care about critters, hopefully you'll get active for the Atlantic sturgeon, you'll get active for the jaguar. I'm not sure what we can do for the rhinos.
No, I mean, that's a whole other
Is that
country.
done?
What?
The white rhino, is there nothing to be done?
I mean, no, Sudan was the last male. So I think there's like two, and I don't, from what I know.
Did they save the sperm? Something. No, I'm serious.
No, I don't know. I haven't seen anything.
We'll look that
I remember. Well, if you want to let us know if they saved rhino sperm, I don't know. I mean, I think though too, it's like, what are you gonna do if you have two females and the same sperm? Then you're just like creating a bunch of one, and then it's incest. So like the thing when I interned at Philadelphia Zoo, for people who don't know, zoos have this, it's literally like Tinder for animals. But they have this program where when they when they try to create a breeding pair, it's a lot of work actually, because there's this whole database where they catalog all the animals, because this is also used for conservation. This is used for bringing back species that are on the brink of extinction. And it's a whole thing to make sure that there is no incest, because you can't have that issue with zoo animals. So zoos work really hard to make sure that they're not breeding relatives. And sometimes I remember hearing about one, like they were so excited. I can't remember what the animal was, but they were going to have this breeding pair, and they had it was wonderful and all this stuff. And then they went back a couple generations and they're like, oh, like they're too closely related. We can't do that. So I think that's the problem too, is it's like, you're just creating a bunch of babies from one animal and then like their cousins. I'm not a biologist.
Gotcha.
But I think that's the issue too.
Well, but the I guess the important thing to know, right, is that people are looking for solutions. And when it comes to the species that are still here, people can get active and engaged. If a species at risk, support it getting listed on the endangered species list and getting that critical habitat designation. If you get critical habitat designation, it gives legal strength to fend off those projects that will decimate habitat. Get active for the jaguar, right? To help with their return and their restoration. Whatever animal, right, resonates with your heart, go on that Google machine, look it up, because I guarantee you, if it's a species at risk, an endangered species, or a species that's really healthy and happy right now, it needs your help, and there's an opportunity to give it help. So get on that Google machine, find out what you can do, get active, get involved, and in a systemic way, to help with all species, get behind whatever Green Amendment movement's happening in your state, or be the one to start it. And you can find out about that at www.forthegenerations.org. We need your help. We need Green Amendments, and we need people to be active for all these critters that don't have a voice in our human world unless we give it one.
About the Green Amendment movement is that there's a place and a space for everybody to get involved, just like there is with any animal. You don't have to be living out in Arizona and New Mexico helping the jaguar. You could find out if you're along a flight path for migrating birds or butterflies and plant a native garden, or leave out orange slices for them or food, or make sure that your area is, if you have a big farm, could your farm possibly be like a stopway for geese on their way to rest? There's so many different things, so just like look into it. But just like at the Green Amendment movement, there's always a place and a space for everybody, whether you just want to make a $5 monthly donation, whether you want to come to different events, whether you want to have Maya come speak, whether you just want to buy the book, whether you want to sign a petition and start your own little group and work with us in conjunction is the word, to build it in your state. Like everybody, if you haven't listened to some of our past episodes, we have people come from all walks of life join our movement, and that's why it inspires me, because it's a place and a space for everybody. And that's what the environmental movement should be. I think that's what fighting for our planet is, because literally all of us share this earth, and so we should all be working to protect it. So if you like season 2, if you're excited to see what we have going on, you should go follow us at Green Jeans Pod on Instagram. Go follow at Green Amendments on Instagram. Follow at Delaware Riverkeeper Network on Instagram, or DelawareRiverkeeper.org to learn more about the sturgeon. Like my mom talked about, go to www.forthegenerations.org. Support the Green Amendment. And yeah, we're really excited to do this second season, guys. We want to bring cool topics and find a way that we are giving cool information, important information, but also keeping everyone inspired and not depressed, because environmental topics are hard, but we're going to make it fun and inspiring and get you out there motivated.
And we're going to get you active. So, and the first thing you can do, share the Green Jeans podcast with family and friends.
Yes.
So thank you. Welcome to season 2.
Welcome
We're
to
so
season
happy
2.
You joined us.
We are happy you were here. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be so fun. A season 2.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.